Right, happy Easter everyone. Today is Easter. It is a lovely day here in Doncaster in God's own country of Yorkshire. So I thought I'd come on and make a little video today just talking about what is Easter and what has Easter and eggs and bunnies jumping around got to do with Jesus. Obviously we know about the story of Jesus getting crucified on the Friday, which was Good Friday, and then he gets laid in the tomb, and then on Sunday the tomb's empty, and that becomes our Easter holiday, the Holy Week in the Christian calendar. But yeah, what's that got to do with eggs? So I remember being at primary school, might have been secondary school, but I remember being at school and someone raised this question, like, what's this Jesus story got to do with these eggs? And I remember the teacher saying, well, the egg represents the stone that was in front, blocking the door of the tomb, and that stone was rolled away, and Jesus ascended to heaven or was resurrected, or whatever you believe. So yeah, but that is not true. That's not where the eggs come from. It's a completely different thing altogether. So let's get into what is Easter. Right, so let's examine what the word Easter actually means, because the holiday is called Easter, but what is Easter? So the name Easter comes from the name of a pagan goddess, the goddess of fertility, the goddess of new life, of the spring. She is called Eoster. Eoster, okay? In High German, she was known as Ostara. And they would have feasts for her in April time, the start of spring. They would have feasts in her honour and all kinds of pagan rituals, dancing about naked and stuff. Obviously, it's about fertility, so there'll be a bit of hanky-panky going off as well. Yeah, but that is where the name comes from. It's a pagan name after a pagan goddess. So the name Eoster, Easter, Ostara, you'll notice it sounds very similar to the name of the country, Austria, also known in German as Österreich. So Österreich, Austria, literally means Eastern realm. Eastern realm. So think about what happens in the east. In the east, that is where the sun rises. That is the new dawn. Okay, so when we're talking about this goddess, Eoster, Ostara, we're talking about the goddess of the dawn, the new beginning of the day. Every day we get a new beginning from the east. And the name East itself, Easter, Eoster, is part of that as well. So it's all linked together. That is where the name of Easter actually comes from. Back in the day, the month of April was actually called Ostarmanos, which means Ostara's month. So April being the springtime, the new beginning, linked to this goddess of new beginnings, linked to the spring equinox as well. So the spring equinox is when the sun crosses the celestial equator, which means you get roughly the same amount of day and night time hours. That's the spring equinox, which usually occurs like the end of March time, and then obviously once that's happened, April starts, and that is Ostarmanoth, the month of Ostara. So yeah, intrinsically linked to fertility, which obviously eggs, hares, bunnies, breeding like rabbits. That's obviously a big part of this connection. But there is another part to the story as well. But apparently this is something that sort of evolved later. So maybe the eggs and the fertility and the bunnies and stuff did come first, but later the story arose that this goddess Ostara would turn into a hare and lay eggs, lay coloured eggs for children. But that's not classed as like an ancient story. That seems to be something that's been adapted later. But again, you've got the link there between bunnies breeding like rabbits, eggs, fertility, new life. Obviously when the egg cracks and the chick hatches, it's that new life, that new birth, new beginnings. So that's what it's all about. That's what the term Easter and the whole idea of the pagan holiday, which is what it is, that's where it all comes from. But what has all of that got to do with Jesus? Right, so when we look at the Jewish calendar, there is a particular week in the Jewish calendar known as Passover. So Passover was when, during the times of like the Exodus, God sent the plagues. Now, he told the Jews if they sacrificed a lamb, wiped the blood of the lamb around their door, then God would pass over their house and they wouldn't be subject then to the plagues. So that's where the term Passover comes from in the Jewish calendar. Now, the Jewish calendar is very different to our calendar. The Jewish calendar has different months, different years. So the time of Passover, it changes week to week, depending on what year it is. We jump forward then to the story of Jesus. So we know that Jesus was crucified, but the day before was the Last Supper with his disciples. So the Gospels tell us that the Last Supper was during Passover. So from that bit of information there from the Gospels, we can then say that Jesus was crucified in the month of April. So that gives us then a time frame. Like I say, in the Jewish calendar, that time frame changes, year to year. Passover changes, but when the Roman Emperor Constantine took over, he had a vision of a cross. He won a big battle, and he changed from being a pagan. He changed the whole religion of the Roman Empire from paganism to Christianity. So when he did that, there was something that happened in 325 AD called the Council of Nicaea. So where he got all of his leaders together, all of his advisors and stuff, and they figured out they pinned down dates for holy days in the Christian calendar. So that's where we end up with the Holy Week, which is like the Easter week, if you like, what we celebrate now. So you've got the Last Supper on the Thursday, you've got Good Friday, the day he was crucified, and then he was in the tomb for 3 days, including Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday was the day the tomb was empty and Jesus was resurrected. So they fixed that in April. Again, we know from the Gospels that the Last Supper was during Passover. So yeah, we can put that event in April, and that's why we celebrate it at this same time every year. So Constantine, he's changed the Roman religion to Christianity. But 100 years later, Roman Empire's in decline and paganism starts to creep back in. Now obviously they're already celebrating this Holy Week, but now paganism's creeping back in. So it sort of makes sense that this Easter celebration, this celebration of new life, of rebirth, which happens in April with spring, just gets kind of superimposed onto that same Christian holiday. Obviously the rebirth, the resurrection of Jesus, coming out of the tomb is like the chick coming out of the egg. There's a lot of similarities between the two things. you know, this, like I say, this story of rebirth, of new life, a new dawn, remembering that Easter literally means from the east, yeah, the dawn, the sun rising. Also remember that Constantine, before he was a Christian, worshipped the god Sol Invictus, the sun god. So again, the sun rising in the east. See how this all connects together. But we're talking about two separate things. We're talking about paganism and Christianity. Later on, sort of 7th century, Christianity started to come back. Again, you've got this pagan holiday. Now we're celebrating the Christian holiday again, this Holy Week, the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. So these two things have been superimposed on top of each other. They are now merged with each other. Most people walking around today wouldn't know the difference, wouldn't know why there's bunnies running around and we're talking about, you know, Jesus on the cross. It's all just kind of merged into one. But that is the story of Easter. It's now become a commercial powerhouse, people selling eggs and selling cards and stuff like that. And yeah, the kind of the original story about what it's all about has kind of been lost. So yeah, I just thought I'd make this video today, just delving into the history of what Easter actually is. So hope you enjoyed that. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and yeah, I'll do more of these in future. So I am off now to eat loads of chocolate eggs. So yeah, hope you have a good Easter. Make most of this lovely, beautiful day, and I will see you soon.